Welcome to Radio 64. Welcome to Radio 64 Video Game Music Remix Radio. I'm your host, Eric Mickles, also known online as duskvstweak. Radio 64 is part of the Radio Meanwhile network. Visit radiomeanwhile.com for more information about this and other great podcasts. You can share your thoughts on this episode and request music by following the show on Facebook or Twitter at Radio64Pod. And please rate, subscribe, and share this show on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. We open the show with The Whip's Memory by TGH from ocremix.org from the game Castlevania, Portrait of Ruin. TJH, otherwise known as the Guitar Hero, has that wonderful chiptune sound that always just clicks with me. I've been playing a lot of their music from the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon series, but this one I think was the first time I actually heard something by TJH when it first came out. It was released in 2011, and I was just kind of floored by the sound. I think I was only just starting to understand what chiptune and 9-bit style music was. And I loved it. I've never played the Nintendo DS Castlevania games, but every time I hear the music from it, I'm like, I gotta get those. I wish I wish Konami was still interested in making games, and I wish they would release all those portable Castlevanias from Game Boy Advance and the Nintendo DS and some new collection so we could play them. I would love to sink my teeth into those. Moment in that song, around 2:15, maybe the bridge is over, and the song just has so much energy and fun to it. So The Whip's Memory by TGH is one of my favorites. I hope you enjoyed that, and I thought it was a pretty fun way to open the show. So again, The Whip's Memory, TJH, OCRemix.org from the game Castlevania Portrait of Ruin. We have a Donkey Kong Country song up next. This Donkey Kong Country song is interesting. I really like it. It's very relaxing. It's very chill. It has a very calm sound to it all, but it's remixing the track Fear Factory from the Donkey Kong Country soundtrack, and Fear Factory and those levels, they were stressful. So it's really interesting that this NoTuX was able to take the Fear Factory theme and turn it into this song that you would imagine Donkey Kong listening to on his hammock. It feels like a completely different song, and I think part of the reason it succeeds in this is because it takes out a lot of the mechanical sounds. A lot of the industrial sounds are taken out of this track, and it has much more of a world vibe. There's a lot more acoustic elements in this, and so with changing the instruments, with changing the tone, the atmosphere is completely different in this, and I think it's impressive. And for a long time, I don't even think I connected it with Fear Factory, even though I knew the tune. I think it was just so different. I put this at a calmer, more serene level. So this is Welcome Home DK by NoTuX from OCRemix.org from the game Donkey Kong Country. was Welcome Home DK by NoTuX from ocremix.org from the game Donkey Kong Country. It's funny, even though that is a mellow song, Fear Factory always has this, the main tune has this kind of sorrowful piece to it, was in the original David Wise track, and I'm not, I wonder if that's what he was going for, to get this kind of, this sad sound in there. And I think even with Welcome Home DK, even though it's much more relaxed, a bit happier, there's still that kind of, I don't know, the melancholiness of it all, right? That David Wise's soundtrack for the Donkey Kong Country games just has in every track. They can't help but be that way. We have a vocal piece up next. This is called Lover Reef, and there's a lot of people working on this. You got D-Lux, Geoffrey Taucer, Jillian Aversa, Shonen Samurai, and Zircon. Your mileage might vary on this track. I love this song, and I think it's cheesy in all the right ways with the lyrics. I hope you agree. I think the vocals singing sound really good. It's remixing the Lava Reef zone from Sonic and Knuckles, and I think that's just a very strong source tune. This track puts a lot of emotion into that while kind of having this cheesy, slightly overdramatic love song. The lyrics have this are overdramatic as well. There's actually some really cool guitar riffing in here, and after the guitar solo, there's this kind of spoken voice moment that almost has this almost parody like deep voice just talking. You can hear when our emotions first ignited. It's like our hearts have never tired. It feels so knowing. I love this one. This is Lover Reef. Get it? Because Lava Reef Zone is the original. This is called Lover Reef. So this is Lover Reef by D-Lux, Geoffrey Taucer, Jillian Aversa, Shonen Samurai, Zircon from ocremix.org from the game Sonic and Knuckles. That was Lover Reef by D-Lux, Geoffrey Taucer, Jillian Aversa, Shonen Samurai, and Zircon from OceansAndrew from the game Sonic and Knuckles. Now I feel like every game we put up after this has to have the and Knuckles so that we can kind of match that level. So we're playing a track from Final Fantasy VI, but we're going to call it Final Fantasy VI and Knuckles. So from the game Final Fantasy VI and Knuckles, we have a track called Morning After. It's remixing the Day After track by Nobuo Uematsu from Final Fantasy VI. Kind of a somber, Final Fantasy VI has a lot of somber tunes, and the Day After track is just trying to relate to you musically how the world has changed in Final Fantasy VI after the big twist. So it's taking the Day After mix and adding a lot of synth work in there, creating kind of a funky beat to overlay the track. It kind of has this warped sense about the Day After. It's kind of at times it's a bit of a conservative take, but in other ways it kind of twists the Day After track into a crunchier sound. So I really like the synth. They have this kind of woodwind sound to them, which I really like. Maybe I prefer it if those woodwinds were real. This is Morning After Hangover by djpretzel from OceansAndrew from the game Final Fantasy VI and Knuckles. was Morning After Hangover by djpretzel from ocremix.org from the game Final Fantasy VI. Man, Final Fantasy VI, what a classic. We have a track from Deus Ex now, Unetco mix. It feels like that's the one that gets mixed the most. There's a lot of tracks I like from Deus Ex that maybe I'd like to hear remixed more, but the Unetco one seems to be the gift that keeps on giving. So this track is an atmospheric electronic piece. A lot of synths, a lot of voice samples in there. It's one of those pieces of music that I like putting on while I'm reading. I definitely had this track on when I was rereading Neuromancer. It keeps the spirit of the cyberpunk soundtrack from Deus Ex. I think it takes a track that is very strong on its own and just kind of adds to it. Makes the Unetco theme maybe something that it was supposed to be originally, because you could still imagine hearing this track in the game. Or maybe this is how you remember the original Unetco track. It's one of those, doesn't really change the core of the original source, but it just kind of expands on it and kind of makes it its true self. So this is Neonature by Nervous Test Pilot from ocremix.org from the game Deus Ex. That was Neonature by Nervous Test Pilot from OCRemix.org from the game Deus Ex. Well, when I find myself in times of trouble, Super Mario comes to me, speaking words of wisdom. It's a me! And this is a Super Mario track, the original Super Mario theme. This is Me and Mario Down by the Schoolyard, and if you couldn't tell by that title, it's taking the original overworld music from Super Mario Brothers by Koji Kondo, the one that we all know and love, putting it through the lens of Paul Simon and making it sound like Me and Julio Down by the Schoolyard. And it's kind of shocking to me how successful it is. It's one of those things where I'm listening to it and sometimes I forget I'm listening to the Mario theme. But then the Mario theme, it all just fits right in there perfectly. The whistling, you can hear the Me and Julio, but the Mario theme is 100% there. I think it's an amazing fusion. So this is Me and Mario Down by the Schoolyard by FFmusic DJ and Geoffrey Taucer from OCRemix.org from the game Super Mario Brothers. And Knuckles. That was Me and Mario Down by the Schoolyard by FFmusic DJ and Geoffrey Taucer from OCRemix.org from the game Super Mario Brothers. I love the sound of the acoustic guitar in there. I love the way they just blend together. It has such a fantastic folk sound to it all. And the whistling, I'm impressed by the whistling. Whistles well, records the whistle well. I think the whistling goes right in there with that folky acoustic sound. This is one of those conceptual pieces that absolutely nails it. Me and Mario Down by the Schoolyard. Up next, we have a heavy rock piece from the original Legend of Zelda, the 1986 original classic, The Legend of Zelda for the NES. How many ways can I describe the original Zelda right there? This is by Game Over. This comes from their album, Nesperado. It's taking the title theme and the underground theme from The Legend of Zelda, turning it into this kind of slow, heavy rock piece that then becomes a shredding showcase, while that underground, almost, the original underground music for The Legend of Zelda was so stressful, it almost felt like an alarm going off. And I even think at the end of the song, you'll hear some of that as well. But the lyrics in this are just so dramatic, that kind of fantasy rock narrative that you might hear from like Rhapsody of Fire. This one doesn't get as speed metal as Rhapsody of Fire, but you can hear that kind of over-dramatic fairy tale storytelling here. Some of the lyrics actually kind of crack me up. There's a bit here where Zelda whispers the line, "He's here," and then the narrator's like, "She whispers!" And the contradiction to that all, the juxtaposition of the line and the actual execution of it just tickle me to no end. I love it. And then, the song just becomes a fantastic rock piece. This is Hyrule's Angel, The Sleeping Beauty by Game Over from ocremix.org from The Legend of Zelda.
So
that was Hyrule's Angel, The Sleeping Beauty by Game Over from OceansAndrew.org from the game The Legend of Zelda. OceansAndrew brings us a Chun-Li mix, though also some tracks from the theme of Sea Viper. But yeah, the more recognizable track in here, I believe, is Yoko Shinomura's Chun-Li track. I love that unmistakable Chun-Li intro that you hear with those introductory strings. And I love how, using the theme of Viper, OceansAndrew kind of takes us away from the Chun-Li theme, and then we'll just stop everything and let the beat drop with the Chun-Li theme, which just becomes just this party club song that you want to just rock out to with the Chun-Li music. I mean, the music for Chun-Li's stage in Street Fighter 2, I mean, the whole soundtrack is perfect, but the Chun-Li one is just definitely one of the standouts because it's just so recognizable, and you hear that and you can't help but think of Chun-Li or that street level with that bicycle guy riding by. This is Femme Fatale by OceansAndrew from OceansAndrew.org from the game Street Fighter 2. was Femme Fatales by OceansAndrew from OceansAndrew.org from the game Street Fighter II. I don't believe Knuckles was in that one, though. You had all the original World Warriors, but I don't think Knuckles was there unless you unlocked him secretly. So next up is a piece that I've always been impressed with. This came out in 2002, but I think in 2020, I think it's still very impressive. It's called Metal Gear May Cry, which was mixing the musical stylings of Metal Gear Solid and Devil May Cry at the time. In 2002, those games were both, they were big ones. Metal Gear Solid 2 and Devil May Cry. The Devil May Cry soundtrack had a much more gothic sound, but then taking that Metal Gear Solid theme from Metal Gear Solid, which is this big operatic piece, it creates this almost high fantasy sound. In fact, when I first heard this track and I was getting into video editing as a kid, I took Return of the King and I mixed it with this song. It's pretty rough quality now because I made it in like 2004 or something. I'm actually kind of proud of that video because I felt like this song, this Metal Gear May Cry, just has that big gothic operatic fantastical sound that the only movie that I could think of at the time that would match it was something as big and impressive and defining as The Return of the King. I'm a big fan of the Metal Gear Solid soundtracks, and I loved Devil May Cry, so this track, it still does it for me after all these years, still bringing a smile to my face. So this is Metal Gear May Cry by Jared Hudson from OCRemix.org from the game Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty. That was Metal Gear May Cry by Jared Hudson from OceansAndrew.org from the game Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty. You know, it's that last minute and 20 seconds that piano comes in with those trumpets. It just, to this day, I was recently listening to this track in my car, and it still sent shivers through me and still gave me goosebumps, this track. I think it's just such an inspiring piece. In more Metal Gear Solid news, me and my co-host over on Previously on X-Men just interviewed David Hayter, who wrote the screenplays for X-Men 1 and X2, X-Men United, and that's why we had him on the podcast Previously on X-Men. So if you're interested, go listen to that. I know if you're listening to this podcast, you probably know David Hayter as the voice actor for Solid Snake, which is why I bring it up. But it's such a fun interview. It was so, I couldn't believe that I was talking to David Hayter. You know, I played Metal Gear Solid as a teen and just thought Solid Snake was the coolest guy in the entire world. And here I was interviewing David Hayter, just having a conversation with him about the X-Men and why they're so cool and why the movies are good. And it was just kind of one of those moments where I had to step back and be like, wow, I'm talking to David Hayter. So go check out Previously on X-Men, another Radio Meanwhile podcast. And now we have something a little bit happier, a little bit more whistly. You know what? This one actually kind of fits along with that Mario Down in the Schoolyard track. This is Smileyspot from the game Cool Spot. Now, we've played a track from Cool Spot before, and that was this heavy synth electronica rock piece. This is a short little happy piece, just a strolling song as you're either walking down the street or along the beach. That cool little 7-Up spot is just having a happy day, enjoying the sun with this one. So this is Smileyspot by Mazedude from OceansAndrew.org from the game Cool Spot. That was Smileyspot by Mazedude from OCRemix.org from the game Cool Spot. And Knuckles! Yeah, just a fun little innocent piece. It's, you know, if I thought that Metal Gear Solid track was from Return of the King, that Smileyspot thing belongs in Hobbiton. So, listen, I just rewatched the Lord of the Rings movies yesterday. The Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies the past week, so a little on my mind. But that was the last track of this show. So thank you for listening to Radio 64 Video Game Music Remix Radio. I've been your host, Eric Mickles, also known online as duskvstweak. Radio 64 is part of the Radio Meanwhile network. Visit radiomeanwhile.com for more information about this and other great podcasts. Share your thoughts on this episode. Request music by following the show on Facebook or Twitter at Radio64Pod. Please rate, subscribe, and share the show on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.